Hello, my name is Dawson. I am a amateur chess player, and I wanted to go over my first round of the tournament I am in. It's called the Hart Holiday Open. So this series or video is mainly for myself. I'm trying to figure out how to get better, understand what I did wrong during these games, and basically kind of force myself to review my games more seriously. So I was playing, this is round one. I was playing black, and my opponent started off with e4. Um, and I played the Sicilian. And he actually surprised me a little bit because I wasn't expecting him to play knight c3. This is kind of known as like the closed Sicilian normally. So like I didn't have much prepared. So I just went with my usual opening moves. So I play the e6 Sicilian, and he strikes in the center with d4. So d4 basically forces me to make a decision. Do I want to capture the pawn on d4, or do I want to push in the center with d5? Both moves I think are okay. I just decided maybe let's just capture, and when white recaptures, I can bring out my knight in order to attack the queen and gain a tempo, basically. So once the queen goes back, it's a little good for me, I guess you can say. The queen is blocking the bishop right now. I was expecting him to maybe play like queen a4 or all the way to queen d1, but I don't know. For some reason, he wanted to block his dark squared bishop in. So I was a little caught off guard. I didn't know what I should do. All I know is that I gained a tempo, and maybe we can start developing our other pieces. So I thought knight f6, just simply attacking the pawn, putting more pressure, and yeah, just simply developing. He goes b3. So b3, I was very surprised. I thought this move was really, really slow, and I would be able to, I guess, capitalize on it. Um, Mainly through this knight. This knight is not defended right now by the pawn since the pawn moved forward. So when my bishop comes out, I would be pinning the knight and also having a lot of pressure against this diagonal here. So that's what I did. Bishop b4. Turns out it wasn't the most accurate move. Mainly because white just plays bishop b2, and then I have no real way to like attack it somewhere. So uh, what the computer suggests is mainly playing like d5 immediately, trying to take advantage of the slow move b3. Maybe we see like takes and takes. No, the knight wouldn't take, but yeah, we get a center where I have an isolated pawn in the center, and white is basically gonna try and win this pawn. So instead of doing that, um, I did play bishop b4. Um, and then since I am threatening this pawn over here, he does have to defend first. So let's say if he plays bishop b2, then I can play knight takes e4 because this knight is pinned, so it can't move. So I would get the pawn for free. So f3, just securing the pawn. I castle, plays bishop b2, and with bishop b2, I was sort of at a loss for what I wanted to do. If in the game I played basically d5, um, initiating basically a lot of trades if he wanted to take. The problem is mainly I would think that white just castles here, and then no, he can't castle because like I'm gonna play d4 next. So d5 basically like stops white from castling. If let's say he were to castle, maybe play like d4, and then let's say um, and then I guess the next move would be taking this knight. I would not get back rank mated because queen takes, rook takes, knight takes. So I would be able to save myself. The other rook cannot come to attack because obviously there's two pieces here. Um, so that's what I thought might have happened if he were to castle. Um, instead, he plays a3. Just attacking my bishop, simply asking, do I want to take or do I want to go back? So the move that I played in the game was bishop takes c3. I made this decision after like 2 to 3 minutes of thinking, mainly because if I thought of just going back, trying to keep the pin, white would play b4, and b4 basically pushes my bishop even further back. So I think my advantage was mainly this attack on this diagonal. So if I were to trade, it at least weakens the center, so I might be able to like win the pawn. This is very important later on in the game. So I take, bishop takes, queen takes, which is a little bit of surprise. I thought maybe bishop takes was a little bit more accurate, mainly because like the queen is sitting on like a pretty decent square. If queen takes, then you're kind of just blocking. My opponent probably thought that queen takes, and then I can't move my knight, so because that would be checkmate on g7. So maybe, yeah, he was looking for tricks. Queen takes, and I follow up. Instead of playing d4, trying to close down the center, normally with when your opponent has like the bishop pair, opening up the position is kind of bad because all his bishops get a lot of life. But I think in this case, black is trying to play for basically the isolated pawn in the center. So that's why I take, white takes. And right now, I'd say like I'm pretty, like I have a slight edge, mainly because I'm developing my knights. My knights are developed. I'm gonna get my bishop out sooner or later, and then I'll have some nice files for my rooks. So in order to get this bishop a little bit more active, instead of playing like trying to play for like b6, it does hang the knight, but like maybe like queen out first, just trying to let's say, yeah, like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe like queen c7, just protecting the knight, getting ready for b6. Instead, I went with like e5. So e5 opens up the bishop. So the idea is that we get our bishop out, and then we play rook to c8. White's next move was a huge surprise a little bit. I thought like maybe he was very careless and like wasn't really thinking about defending this pawn like too hard, like maybe like queen over, um or like even giving up the pawn. Giving up the pawn isn't very good because the knight takes, but the natural move for him was bishop to d3. Now bishop to d3, it seems like it does protect the pawn. The problem with it is that I can play knight takes e4. Now, knight takes e4 looks like it gives up a piece. But my queen can go to h4 and deliver a check. Best move would probably be like moving the king over. Maybe like bringing the queen over. But yeah, I mean, maybe let's say he goes to over here. Yeah, queen takes, and then I get the bishop back, and I am basically like better because my bishop is going to be much stronger. My knight is going to come to the center. We're going to be attacking these pawns, attacking with the rooks, and basically it's a pretty good position for black. But unfortunately, like I don't know what was happening. I thought I just completely blanked out and played bishop to g4. Now bishop to g4, I'm like, yes, I'm stopping him from castling. I didn't really think more after that. I saw that he could play like knight f3, but then like I thought maybe I could play knight d4, but then I realized that my pawn was hanging. And maybe I could play like rook c8, making it very complicated. Um, so instead, yeah, I should have played knight takes e4. Unfortunately, I didn't do that. So bishop g4, knight comes out. And then in order to continue the attack, basically, I had to carefully consider like what I wanted to do next. If I played rook to c8, um, white could actually play knight takes e5. So the natural pin that's usually here with the queen here, isn't there anymore. So white can simply just take the pawn, and then if I take, queen takes, and basically I'm losing my center, the position's opening up, and it looks very dangerous. So rook c8 doesn't work. I thought maybe defending the pawn, rook e8. But I thought like, okay, that's kind of slow. He's gonna castle and then he'll be okay. Knight back, same thing. It's a little passive. He's just castles and everything is okay. So I thought, okay, let's trade off my bishop. My bishop isn't really looking at anything. It's not gonna protect anything right now. And if we notice, his bishops aren't very active right now. It's being stuck behind either pieces or pawns. So I'm like, okay, let's get rid of the knight. So I took bishop takes knight, pawn takes, and then I place my knight in the center. So placing my knight in the center attacks this pawn over here. The funny thing is that he could actually give up the pawn and then he'll be okay, simply because the open files are kind of too strong. But instead he protected his pawn with rook to f1. So rook f1 I think was a huge blunder or mistake, mainly because it loses a lot of time. If you were to just castle, I think with his rooks on the open files, everything would kind of be crashing down on me and I would have to try and defend. But I guess he simply just wanted to defend the pawn, and luckily I was able to get another attack going. So then I played rook c8, simply gaining another tempo or attacking the queen just to move. If you notice here, if he played like, basically like any other move is not very good as what he played, but queen back. Queen back basically tries to solidify everything, protects all the pawns, and everything is okay. I play this tricky little move like knight h5. Now, knight h5 has a weird, I guess, theme or attack to it. An idea is that, like, it opens up the diagonal. So when it opens up the diagonal like this, I am basically threatening, maybe a check, to stop him from castling, but also just simply attacking the pawn. Also, this knight over here is ready to jump into f4. So knight to f4 would probably cause a lot of chaos, mainly because like the knight is so like well placed. It's attacking multiple things in white's territory, and I simply might be able to like win either a pawn or start attacking with my rooks once I get my queen out and my knight out. Now, my opponent had to think a little bit of time, mainly because there wasn't really any good moves that he could make. Let's say, for example, he castled. Castle immediately loses to, like, knight b3. This pawn is pinned, so I would be winning the queen. Let's see. If he played bishop takes the knight. Queen takes. And unfortunately, he can't castle, because if he castled, this would be mate, unfortunately. So he wouldn't be able to castle. My queen is in the center. My knight is going to be coming to f4. And if we look at this bishop here, this bishop is very like it's not a good bishop. It's basically a pawn that can move diagonal. um, and there's not really much white can do to fix this. He would need like a lot more space. Like for example, if he played like maybe like somehow got to play like f4 and then like f5 and then follow it up with like bishop c4, like I think it would be okay. Um but yeah, unfortunately there's no space. The bishop has is locked out by its own pawns basically. Um so being able to judge that my minor piece is going to be so strong, I'm like, okay, I must be like okay or doing like a lot better. So my opponent played a very careful move. Um, Although it wasn't the best move. He played queen to e3. Simply trying to like hold everything together and not to lose anything. Unfortunately, he overlooked rook takes c2. So rook takes c2. Um, Basically tempts white into taking the rook. What happens if he takes the rook? If he takes the rook, then the knight takes, and then the queen falls. So instead, my opponent played rook to f2. Rook f2 tries to trade off the rooks, getting rid of this amazing rook, and also like saving white from, I guess, being massacred like down these files here. So in order to keep the pressure going, I thought maybe I can play. Wait, let's back up for a second. So what would happen if white plays bishop takes the knight? If bishop takes, pawn takes, and I thought like the queen is getting trapped because my rook is getting rid of all the squares, but I forgot that like the queen actually could go to this square over here, all the way to like g2. But if the queen went to g2, I think I would be winning pretty hard. Mainly because like I could probably play like knight f4, attack the. I mean like knight f4. No. Let's see. What would I do if the queen went here? The queen went there. Hmm. I think just simply maybe attacking the bishop. Yeah, and maybe just attack the bishop. Um. Also like check. Yeah, I think maybe I would have played check. And then maybe like king moves over. And then I play like rook c2. Or I can just simply take the pawn. Like either one. Either one. Um because white is gonna get this, I think. But if he does, I always play like queen takes, right? Yeah, the safer move would probably be just rook back, to be honest. Because if queen takes, then rook comes over, and then I'm attacking down the file. But yeah. So yes, I played rook takes c2, rook up, and then I wanted to keep the attack going. Keep the attack going. I didn't want to trade. Trading here would be a mistake, mainly because I have pieces by the king, and I would basically be giving up like all my pressure, and I would have to defend because these monster bishops would probably get in the way if I traded. So queen out. My opponent takes the knight. Pawn takes. Queen takes. And I play rook to d8. So it was at this point when I thought, okay, white is forced to move back, right? Or take the pawn. What my opponent did is like I missed like queen takes the rook. Forcing me to queen trade, and he ends up with two rooks and a bishop versus my queen and knight. So this was by accident. I didn't realize that like I was actually winning here. What I thought is like these rooks aren't coordinated, so maybe I can just win these pawns. Um, so like let's go back for a little bit. So if he had gone back, I thought maybe I could go like uh rook takes here. Rook takes the bishop, and the queen cannot take the rook, or else it would be basically hmm, I mean, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with this? Yeah, I guess it would be a situation where the rook doesn't get out, and my pieces are a little bit more coordinated, maybe. My next few moves maybe like be queen check, first rook back, and then queen check, and then eventually like getting the rook. And then my knight can always jump in. So I guess he didn't like that. The other side too is like if he takes the pawn, rook takes the bishop, and unfortunately, white does not have a checkmate, back rank mate, mainly because my rook just comes back, and I'm okay. So instead, he took, I take, and he takes, and here I don't think it really matters like what I start with first. I considered giving myself space, mainly so that when the rook comes down, I can just move my king up one square if he gives me a check. But instead, I play queen b6, or first knight to f4 first. Yes, and then when the rook comes out, then queen b6. The rook can't come down because my queen just takes. So he moves his rook up one, give myself space. And here, I thought like maybe like he would move his king to the side or something. Um, but I guess he played a careless move, played like b4. Now b4, I think was a huge like strategic mistake, mainly because like b4 was being or b3 was being protected by the bishop and blocking the vision of the pawn. So I simply forked him, queen to e3, attacking the pawn, attacking the king. If he unfortunately like if he ever like moved his rooks over, this would be checkmate. So the other rook, probably check. Um, bishop out, bishop back, and then the knight actually comes in, and then I end up winning like I don't know his piece and probably hit one of the other rooks too. So that's what would have happened if he moved his rook. Instead, he moved to the side. Queen takes. And then he tries to save his pawn by pushing it forward. Now, I can't suggest any better moves. It's kind of hard for white to play here. Um, so I play queen b4, simply attacking the pawn. He plays bishop to d3. So here I could have not traded my knight for the bishop. I could have instead maybe like kept the bishop alive and like um, maneuvered around and so on and so forth. But I thought this was pretty straightforward. I just take the bishop, he takes back, and I can give him a check, and I just win the pawn. So I win the pawn. I have two passed pawns. So that's what I tried to did. Tried to do. I also missed. I thought I had a tactical like win here with knight takes, rook takes, and then I play queen b1. But I realized after that, yeah, he could play king e2. So I simply just took the pawn after. What's good though is that the rooks aren't coordinated yet. So I do have a little bit of time to push my pawns forward in order to get them to the scores that I want. It is a little messy. I try to prevent the king from giving space for the rooks so that I could move my pawns forward. He tries to attack me. He goes to the other side for cover. I push my pawns forward. And then I think it's at this point where we see that the rooks are kind of disconnected here, right? So I think this gives me an opportunity to disrupt the position a little bit and try and force my pawns down the board. So I play queen check. He goes to the side. and then I give him a check again. Now, what I was worried about was that, like, maybe he just goes, like, back. Mm, yeah. Like, what if he just goes back? Because I don't really have much, really. Like, if I keep checking him, like, eventually, like, it's just gonna be, like, a little harder for me to push. Um, so unfortunately, luckily though, he didn't play that. So he moved to the side again. I was able to get in, and basically, I'm just trying to push my pawns down the board. So this pawn is protected by tactics. For example, if he takes now, queen check, and when the king moves, I just take the rook. So he can't take right away. So instead, he plays rook over, trying to win the pawn. And I think many mistakes in the endgame are when we try to force something and we don't actually like look and see what our opponent can do. So this was pretty straightforward to me. It took me like maybe a minute to think about. I played a3, simply attacking the rook. If the rook moves off the file, I just take the other rook. So he's not really given any choice. So takes the pawn. I take the rook. He takes back, and I start to roll my pawns down the board to control some more squares. I was also considering maybe I just play like king up and up and up and up and up, but at first I thought like maybe I should force this rook to defend a little bit before I start committing my king forward. So he goes closer to his king. I move my pawn up. He tries to attack my rook. Queen goes to a safer square. Start moving my pawns forward, taking away squares, and if we notice, this king can't really move anywhere. The rook can't move. Like, there's just so much. So I simply walk in my king, knowing that my opponent can't really make any moves. It was here that maybe I could have like ended it sooner and stuff, but I give him a check. Check. I walk my king in, so I'm making contact with the rook. So if the king ever moves, let's say, to the corner, I can take. So the rook moves back. And then I give the finishing blow of king e2, forcing the contact of the king from the rook away, so he goes into the corner. And then luckily it's not stalemate here because he does have two pawns ready to move. So he plays f4, and I play queen to g1, ending the game. So here I won my first round. There's still 4 more rounds to go, to tomorrow and to the next day. So hopefully I'll be able to convert and not make as many mistakes as I did in this game. Overall, it is gonna get harder from here, so we'll see how it goes. Thank you.